Hello and welcome to another edition of the Paul's Body Engineering Podcast. Another 6 months has gone by. It's actually September. I cannot believe that it is the second week of September already. 2025 has zipped by in incredible time. And I don't know about you, but the older I get, the faster it goes, which is kind of a scary proposition. And that kind of brings me to today's topic because as a society, as a community, as an individual, whatever perspective you want to look at, we are looking at time in a different light, meaning that it is going by no matter what we do. Okay, you can make the most of it, or you can be lazy through it, or you can just get through it and keep your head above water. You can continually come up with excuses, or you can take it head on. And often the case is that people are complaining, and the narrative is that I don't have time, or it's too hard, or I don't want to do that, or I don't know how you do it. You've got good genetics. Like there's just an abundance of excuses when it comes to weight loss, physical fitness, keeping healthy, maintaining a healthy regime. And the truth of the matter is, yes, it's hard, but it needs to be done. This is the thing. The facts are that, yes, you have to be in a calorie deficit if you want to lose weight. Yes, you have to turn up to the gym and train hard if you want to quote unquote tone. Okay, these sorts of things have been proven time and time again, yet many of us, and I'm not singling anyone out here, or any minority or group or anything like that, I'm just speaking from an overarching perspective, that many of us don't want to do that stuff. There's resistance for some strange reason, even though evidence, science has proven that it is the case. And I want to go through a list of factual items that have been proven. And the point of this podcast is to basically say it is what it is. These are the facts and it is what it is. There's no sugarcoating it. There's no shortcut. There's no magic drug. I know Ozempic is getting so many headlines at the moment. Like I saw a story last night where one of the negative side effects of Ozempic now is potentially making birth control not work. So if you're on birth control, then you take Ozempic, guess what? You're susceptible to falling pregnant if you're in a relationship. It's scary. So, even things like that seem to be too good to be true, it certainly are at this point in time. So it's worth noting and educating yourself on the bare basics, on what actually works and what has worked for years and years and years, decades and decades, and it has been researched to the nth degree. So, as I mentioned off the top, calorie deficit. We know this is essential for fat loss. It doesn't matter what way you look at it. It doesn't matter what shape or strategy or approach you take. At the end of the day, a calorie deficit allows you to lose body fat, not weight, fat. So it doesn't matter what diet you choose, whether it's the keto diet or the carnivore diet or the paleo diet or the Mediterranean diet, or just simply track your calories. Fat loss is effective and it comes off the back of a deficit, but you have to be in a deficit and it takes time. This is the other thing that people fail to realize. You're not going to drop kilos and kilos in a week. You've got to put in weeks and weeks and months of a consistent approach that you can sustain for ongoing success. It's as simple as that. It is the first law of thermodynamics. Now, well then, macronutrients, next layer down, right? You've got your macros, you've got your carbs, your proteins, and your fats. Above that, they equate and total to calories. But when we break it down a little bit more, it is important that we understand what macros are. Yes, it's another layer of complexity, it's another layer of calculation, but it is really important. And this is what also science shows us, that tracking macros can influence your composition, so it can actually determine how you look. It can also determine your ability to maintain a diet, so in terms of satiation, and it also is protein out of the three is the building block for muscle growth, muscle retention, muscle maintenance, or muscle loss if you're not eating enough protein and you are training, or you're not training, you're training cardio, overweight, or vice versa. So again, proven by science, these are the facts, it is what it is. Make sure you understand that. High protein diet helps preserve lean mass, protein increases satiety. So satiation, keeping you fuller for longer is one way to curb hunger cues, because at the end of the day, if you have a lot of hunger cues and you don't know how to manage that and you go for carby snacks over anything else, it's just going to keep repeating the cycle and you're having calorie dense food ongoing without the opportunity to manage that better. Now, weight loss. it doesn't always equal fat loss. You can lose weight from water, glycogen, or muscle, and that's one of the issues with Ozempic or any of these other GLP, appetite suppressant drugs that are on the market at the moment. You don't have control over what it takes, particularly when it's suppressing your appetite. It's not extracting body fat from you. It's not doing that. It's forcing you to eat less. It's basically telling your internal system to go, you don't need as much food as you previously did. It's suppressing your appetite, therefore you're less likely to eat more. So you eat less, put yourself in some instances, a fairly significant deficit, and you start to lose quote unquote weight. Okay, I'm doing those apostrophe symbols right now because that's what comes off. Water will drop off. You'll lose glycogen out in muscle, but also your body will burn muscle. It's the low-hanging fruit scenario. If your body is in a hungered position where it's in a deficit and it needs energy to get you through the day, and remember, energy supply is for something that we do all day. Like right now, I'm hosting and recording this podcast. I'm using energy. Later on, I'll have lunch. I'll use energy. Tonight, I'll go to sleep. I'll use energy. So we need energy for all those things. So the body will just grab whatever is most easiest to attain, meaning the low-hanging fruit scenario. So if muscle is easy to grab, then body fat, that's what it will do. The only way to preserve your muscle mass or to improve it is through weight training, regular weight training, and high protein intake. Simple but factual. Again, it is what it is. These are the facts. Now, we know for a fact that you can't spot reduce. And I still get clients come to me today, like new clients approach me and say, I want to lose belly fat. I want to improve, the fat around my glutes or my legs or my under my arms, whatever it is. It doesn't work. You can't do that. You've got to put yourself into a deficit. You've got to put yourself into a deficit to a point where that area is impacted positively. And then obviously you can build your metabolism back out again while maintaining a lean physique. Can be done. But there is no opportunity for you to spot reduce. And if anyone tells you otherwise, they're complete and utter bullshit artists. Now, we know that resistance training, weight training on the gym floor, not group fitness in terms of pump class, okay? I got nothing against group fitness, please understand that. But resistance-based training, proper hypertrophy, proper progressive overload on the gym floor is key for muscle growth and maintenance. It also, and this is the kicker, it also improves bone density and can boost your metabolic rate. What does that mean? It means you can eat more food. Everyone wants to eat more food. I've seen so many clients come, they're on, let's use round numbers, 1,200 calories, trying to lose weight. Doesn't work. So we slowly but surely reverse them out. They might get up to 1,800, 2,000, who knows, depending on a number of factors. Then we diet them down again. We drop the body fat. Then we reverse them out again. Guess what? Now they're at 2,200. All of a sudden, their metabolic performance, their metabolic rate is improved because we've taken the time to go through the process. It's called metabolic adaptation, and it is a real thing. Again, it is proven by science, it is what it is, and it's factual. Now, progressive overload. This is how you grow your physique. If you are looking to get, and I don't like this term, and people know that, toned, the toned look is a reduction in body fat and an increase in muscle mass, okay? That's what the toned look is. It's not a case of just doing a few bits and pieces here and there in a few group classes. You've actually got to put in some serious work to make that change occur. And this is through progressive overload. It is a requirement. It's not something you may or may not do. It is a requirement. It is factual that in order to change your physique through the development of muscle mass and gain, you have to achieve progressive overload. What does that look like? It means more and more stress on the body over time. It means slowly but surely improving and increasing the amount of volume, the amount of reps, the amount of range, the amount of weight that you lift on an ongoing basis. So it needs to happen regularly, it needs to happen frequently, it needs to happen consistently. That's how you change your physique. Now, cardio, no problem with it at all. Not my biggest of fortes when it comes to my niche, my bread and butter. Obviously, weight training is exactly that, but cardio plays a role. It's significant, right? We all need to have cardio health. Cardio health is based around heart health, your cardiovascular system, your lungs, your VO2 max, your ability to sustain endurance for longer. Now, if you're training for a race, a marathon, an ultra marathon, a mountain climb, a long distance walk, a challenge. It might be a charity event. Great. Well, you train for that event. You want to be sport specific. You want to train specifically to what you're trying to do. If you want to improve your health, maybe you've been given medical advice or things like that. Great. Fantastic. It's not required for fat loss, but it does support a calorie deficit, but it significantly supports the improvement in your cardiovascular health. It's all well and good to have one without the other, but you want to try and have a holistic approach. The ironic thing is, if you do weight training, where you're achieving hypertrophy and progressive overload at a fairly frequent rate, so 3, 4, 5 days a week, where the intensity is quite high, the cardiovascular training is actually built into that because of the expenditure that you're putting through your body. So just keep that as a FYI. So, the rule of thumb is combine the two for general fitness if you can. But again, time is obviously a constraint for a lot of people, so you may not be able to do both. So just be sure to focus on high quality training as often as you can. So let's move to some more nutrition specific facts here. Protein, I've already spoken about it. It is the fundamental macronutrient for muscle development and growth. Okay, you need to have an adequate amount of protein. I have had plenty of clients come to me over the decade or more that I've been doing this who have been under eating on their protein. They didn't realize it, and when we actually set them up on the required amount, the right amount of protein, they can't believe how much more they have to eat. So that just shows how low they have been eating. Now, top that off with obviously regular weight training, where you need to have protein not only for the development but also the recovery of your muscle breakdown. It is an important piece, and it really is the building block of your muscle. Now, I did a post not that long ago where over the age of, and I'm paraphrasing, I can't remember the exact facts here, I think it was over the age of 35, 40, 45, somewhere around there, every year you're losing something like 3 to 8% of your muscle mass every year as you age. So that is a scary proposition. So when you get into your 70s, 80s, if you're not looking after yourself and training with weights and maintaining or growing, you're going to be very, very weak. Okay, your bones are going to be brittle, your muscles are going to be weak, your body's going to continually break down at a rapid rate, and we don't want that. We want to live a healthy and long and prosperous life where we can have lots of energy and lots of strength. So that is fact, and it is something that a lot of people are not foreseeing or not planning for. Now, moving to fiber. Fiber is something that we often overlook because it's not included in the macronutrient conversation, right? Carbs, proteins, fats. Fiber is another one that is incredibly important. Now, the rule of thumb for fiber for an individual, for an adult female, is around that 20 to 25 gram mark per day. For a male, it's around that 30 to 35 gram mark per day. Now, if you don't know where your fiber sits, you need to track. Simple as that. And again, this comes back to science. Yes, I know people are resistant to tracking, but do you track your finances? Yes. Do you track how much petrol you've got in your car? Yes. So why don't you track how much fuel you put in your body? It is a simple equation. It is factual. It is what it is. And we need to make sure we have enough fiber, because if we don't, high fiber diets reduce the risk of chronic disease, and they also assist with appetite control. So we go back to satiation. If you're eating enough fiber, guess what? You're going to be fuller for longer. Okay, it's also great for gut health and blood sugar control. So why not make sure that you're having enough fiber? All right, meal timing. All right, this is a good one. Meal timing, intermittent fasting. Look, there's no significant study out there that suggests or conclusively suggests that intermittent fasting or any form of fasting is far superior to regular dieting. In fact, if you're not a fairly strong-minded and diligent individual, you may not be able to sustain intermittent fasting because you want to eat more often. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. So why put yourself through that pain when you can actually just eat more frequently and eat smaller meals, for example, to sustain what the calories are required in terms of your goal? It's not magic. It doesn't offer a far superior method. Okay, these people that are doing 24-hour fasts and that, again, science doesn't show that is a superior method. Now, the other one that, again, gets often overlooked is your micronutrients. We speak about macronutrients all the time, but micronutrients are your vitamins, your minerals. And often we are deficient in these because we're opting for poorer food choices. We're opting for, a really basic, underwhelming food selection like rice, potatoes, chicken. There's very little micronutrients in those things. And often we don't know what we don't know, right? But the facts remain that we need to have sufficient vitamins and minerals. And I'm not going to go into all of them right now because there's a lot, but as an example, vitamin B, vitamin C, ferritin, vitamin K, potassium, sodium, like all these things we need the balance of. Now, you might come back to me and go, well, that's so many things to track. How should I know? It's more about the balance of your diet and the food selection rather than trying to track all these idiosyncrasies within the micronutrient world. So just make sure you've got a balanced diet. Fruits, vegetables, grains, leafy greens, lean proteins should cover most things. All right, moving along. Sleep. This is a massive one, and it is one that is heavily underrated and undervalued in most family homes. Sleep is critical, and I emphasize that word. It is critical. It is critical for everything. It is critical for mental health. It is critical for hormonal health. It is critical for fat loss. It is critical for recovery. If you are a chronic poor sleeper, and more so poor sleeper by choice, so you're staying up late, you're burning the candle at both ends, maybe you're on your phone at night, maybe you're watching movies, and then you still have to get up early, and you're constantly tired, and it's because it's self-imposed, you're going to potentially be in an unhealthy state, shall we say. It impairs recovery, it impairs performance, it induces a heightened level of hunger, and it puts a lot of stress on the body. If you're trying to lose weight, it's going to be counterproductive to that. It's something that is significantly overlooked. Like, we rely on energy every single day, right, to everything that we do. And the only way to restore that energy, it's just like plugging your phone in at night time to recharge it, is to get a good night's sleep. It sounds so simple, but often we are victims of poor sleep through our lifestyle choices. Like I said, phones, diet, exercise, poor bedding environment. All of these things can be critical to a good or poor night's sleep, and they need to be looked at. Don't just go to the doctor and say, I need a sleeping pill, I need to go to a sleep clinic. Break it down and have a look at the basics first. And don't just think, okay, it didn't work after one night. You've got to give it a couple of weeks of solid try to ensure that what you're trying can be eliminated as a possible or non-possible option to improve or disprove how you're sleeping. So certainly go down that path. But in terms of overtraining, in terms of recovery, this is another thing. If you're training 6-7 days a week at a high intensity, maybe a couple of times a day, stop. You're burning yourself out. You're going to sustain an injury. You're going to accumulate significant fatigue, and your training performance is going to decline. This is going to impact your ability to sleep. You need to have rest days. You need to have deloads. You need to have periods of time where you don't put stress on your body. I cannot emphasize that enough. It is so, so important. So have a look at your training block. If you don't have assistance with this or you're unsure, ask the question. Talk to someone about it. Now, mindset, behavior, mental health, all of these things can be contributed to success if done correctly. Sustainable habits beat short-term diets. Stop trying to do a yo-yo diet. Stop trying to do an 8-week diet. Stop trying to lose 5 kilos in a week. It doesn't work. Extreme restriction often leads to rebound weight. And what happens when you continually rebound weight and you go round and round in that cycle? It affects your mental health. You can't seem to get out of it. So again, ask for assistance. Consistency always works. Tracking your metrics is significantly important. And again, if you track your finances, if you track your car patterns, your tax returns, your kids' movements, your kids' schooling, their report cards, why aren't you tracking your food? Why aren't you tracking your workout? Why aren't you tracking your own personal data, your weight, your measurements, your photos, your sleep, your steps, your water intake? These are all critical for human survival, yet we tend to overlook them because they're too hard. But they're not. In the reality of the situation, they're actually not too hard. We're just a lazy society and we want instant gratification. Body recomposition or body composition change should be considered more important than scale weight. Now, I have so many clients that still have an emotional attachment to that number. They get on the scales, and if it's up a couple 100 grams, they potentially have a meltdown or they're disappointed in themselves. But their composition has changed because they've been doing the work. Okay, so you cannot rely on that scale weight. Remember, scale weight represents your body mass, not your fat mass, your body mass. It represents your organs, your skin, your hair, your nails, your veins, your arteries, the water in your body, the muscle in your body, the bone in your body, the fat in your body, anything you've consumed or sitting in your digestive tract. There are so many factors that accumulate to that number. The body fat, which is what you're trying to reduce, is a very small percentage of that entire mass equation. So please understand that and work with someone, or give yourself the ongoing self-talk to understand that scale weight is only one small metric that we use to determine progress. Now, motivation. Everyone says I'm not motivated today. I felt it this morning. I went to the gym after my morning PT sessions and I was heavily undermotivated, but I still went and I trained the house down because I'm disciplined. That was the day I trained. I turn up no matter what. And yes, people could say, well, you've been doing this a long time. Well, yes, and I've been doing it a long time because I've sustained those habits. I've ingrained that routine. My routine is set in stone unless I'm away. So I turn up no matter what. And you can too. That's the thing. You can build sustainable habits. It is not hard. You create routine. You remove the resistance of doing it because you know it's important. You set yourself up and have high standards that you want to achieve to. Like I said at the very start of this podcast, time is going by anyway. So why not better yourself in the process and rather than just let the time go? Okay, if you can create routine, habits, structure that you can adhere to and abide by, it creates better adherence to all the things you're trying to achieve in life. And this can then stem over to your professional life, your relationships, your parenting style, the environment that you have at home. It's amazing how much of an impact this can have. All right, not quite there, but almost. Supplements. If you're not having success with a stock standard diet, don't try and assume that spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars on supplements is going to fix the problem. That's not the problem. The problem is you. The problem's not what you're doing. It's your ability to adhere. It's your ability to sustain discipline. Okay, it's your work ethic, but it's not all these other things that you may be making excuses for. And supplements is not one of them. Don't try and go and get the latest fat burner or, the latest appetite suppressant or, test booster or any of these sort of rubbish supplements that have no evidence-based backing. Okay, the only supplements you should even consider taking if your diet is on point or close to is creatine monohydrate, a protein powder if you feel you need to top up your protein, you're not getting enough from normal foods. Okay, caffeine as a potential stimulus for pre-workout. And I'm not talking about a pre-workout, I'm talking about coffee. You can use a pre-workout, there's nothing wrong with that, but it is a high stim-based product. And then just a couple of multivitamins, vitamin D, omegas, magnesium, etc. for common deficiencies. But again, that needs to be determined through a blood test more so than just assuming. You don't want to take something that your body can't absorb because all you're basically creating is expensive urine. Okay, that's the fact of the matter. So don't just go and buy all these vitamins and minerals that you think you're deficient on without conclusive evidence. Go and get a blood test, get that squared away so you know where you are deficient, and then you can obviously support what you need and fill the gaps with potential vitamins. But in saying that, if you're deficient in certain vitamins or minerals, and this can be fixed through your diet, I would choose that over a pharmaceutical or a vitamin product from the chemist any day of the week. Simply focus on food first, get that right, the rest will follow suit. All right, and finally, it is what it is. Fitness trackers. Okay, look, body scan devices, fitness trackers, they serve a purpose. They really do because they give us an option to see where we're at, okay? The point is, and I'll go with body scan devices first. There's no body scan in the world that gives us a 100% accurate reading. I want to put that out there first and foremost. Okay, the ones that you stand on and put your hands on, like the InBody and the eVault, I don't know the percentage, I can't remember, but there isn't a margin of error always. And it also depends on the time of day and the condition you're in. If you do it after a training session, if you do it after a meal, if it's 3/4 of the way through the day, this is going to be different to a different time of the day under different environmental factors, right? So if you are going to use that machine, make sure that it is under the same circumstances, the same environment, the same timing every single time. Same with the DEXA scan. A DEXA scan is more accurate. It's a more higher powered machine. You lie down, you do it fasted. It scans your entire body, bone density, muscle density, growth, balances, all the things. But again, it has to be same time, same conditions, okay? So they do serve a purpose, but you can't use it as gospel. It is not factual. If your body scan says that you're at 8% body fat, you don't go running around going, I'm at 8% body fat and telling the world, because chances are you're probably not. Again, it is potentially inaccurate and there is a margin of error. Okay, 8% body fat is fairly lean for an individual, right? And that's just using an example. Now, fitness trackers, watches, rings, heart monitors, that was the other one I was thinking of. Look, they track your steps, they track your heart rate. A lot of them now can track your sleep, track your stress, these sorts of things. Incredibly effective. And again, that information is very, very relevant to the individual, and you can use that information to make any necessary adjustments you need. But again, they're not always going to be accurate. Like, I'm wearing an Oura ring right now, and it still baffles me as to how that ring on my index finger on my left hand can tell me all the stress levels I'm going through. It can tell me accurately how my sleep is. It can tell me the difference between strength training and walking and gardening and housework. Like, these are the things it pops up from time to time. Now, obviously, it's understanding my heart rate and my stress and stimulus in regards to a certain activity. So it's slowly but surely figuring it out. And I'm sure we'll get to a point where the accuracy of these devices gets better and better and better. But at this point in time, again, they are great devices. They give us a reading. That reading we can utilize to better ourselves. But again, don't use it as gospel. Okay, these are the facts. It has been proven that they're not always accurate. It's useful data, but it's not accurate, and we need to make sure that we are aware of that. So, look, I wanted to cover all of these things because it is a conversation that pops up often for myself. And, as I said off the top, we want to base our decisions on health and fitness around fact, around science, around the evidence and what it shows, not just the latest fad, not just what social media influence Joe Blow says, not what's popped up on TikTok, not what I said, what old mate at the gym told me to do. As if it's supported by evidence, if there's actual studies to support it, and not just a one-off, anecdotal study, a meta-analysis, which is an accumulation of multiple studies coming to a similar conclusion, then great. That to me suggests that what they're saying in terms of that activity or the diet or whatever it is pretty much on the money, and I'll be happy to support that. But at this point in time, don't go off half-cocked and assume that things are how they seem simply because you've seen it or heard it or whatever. Do your own research as well. But the facts remain. Use science to help you make the appropriate decisions. But again, also, it is what it is. If you're resistant to a calorie deficit, I'm sorry to say these are the facts. I understand that you don't want to do that, but if you truly want the results, or you're happy to just spin your wheels and not get any results, then that's the decision you make. I always say to people, you've got one or two roads. You're at a fork in the road. You can either go down the right road and start to learn more about these things and understand where your body sits in it and how you can make better decisions based on evidence, or you can keep going on the road that you've previously been on, where you're spinning your wheels. You might be trying 8-week challenges or short-term diets or going through all these different phases, Ozempic or a carnivore diet or whatever, but you keep coming out of the cycles and you come back to the same point over and over and over again. If you're happy to do that, all the power to you. If you want some change, hit me up. I'm more than happy to give you some free advice on any of those things that you've spoken about. All right, I think I've got my point across. Thank you once again for tuning in. I really appreciate it. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please screenshot, share it across your stories, tag myself. I'd love to see who is listening. We've got an abundance of listeners all across the world. There's listeners in America, shout out to you. Listeners in the UK, shout out to you. Heaps of fans in India. And of course, there's plenty in Australia as well, which is amazing. So thank you once again. If you're interested in any of my coaching services, please jump on paulsbodyengineering.com. Send me a DM, ask me some questions. I'm also giving away a free meal prep guide, which is full of free information. So you can either get that in the link in my bio on my Instagram, or just shoot me a DM and ask me about it, and I'll send it through to you, no problem and no obligation. So thank you once again. Have a wonderful day. And as I say to every client every single day, have a great day.